In 2023, the best-selling beer in America made one decision. Not a bad product, not a recall, not a scandal on the factory floor. One marketing decision. And in the 90 days that followed, it lost the #1 spot it had held for over 20 years. Wiped out an estimated $27 billion of its parent company's market value. And handed its crown to a beer most Americans couldn't have named a year earlier. This is how Bud Light cratered, and the single mistake at the center of it that almost any company could repeat tomorrow. Stay to the end because the real lesson is the part nobody talks about. To understand how far Bud Light fell, you have to see how high it sat. For more than 2 decades, Bud Light wasn't just a beer, it was the beer. It had been the best-selling beer in the United States since the early 2000s. The default, the safe choice, the beer at the barbecue, the tailgate, the wedding open bar. Its parent company, Anheuser-Busch, controlled around 40% of the entire American beer market. And Bud Light was the crown jewel. But by the early 2020s, the empire had a quiet problem. Its drinkers were aging. Younger people were drifting to craft, to hard seltzer, to spirits, to Mexican imports. Volume had been slowly sliding for years, so the brand needed to get young again. And in 2023, its marketing team set out to do exactly that. Make Bud Light relevant to a new generation. That instinct wasn't wrong. Every legacy brand has to do it. The problem was how they did it and how badly they misread the room. Hold on to that because it's the whole lesson. If you like watching giant companies make billion-dollar mistakes in slow motion, subscribe. That's the entire channel. Okay, April 2023. On April 1st, 2023, a transgender influencer named Dylan Mulvaney posted a short sponsored video to Instagram, toasting Bud Light for March Madness and what she called her 365 days of girlhood. It was a single paid post promoting a $15,000 contest, not a TV campaign, not billboards, one post. At first, almost nothing happened, and then everything did. Within days, the post caught fire on the political right. Musician Kid Rock filmed himself shooting cases of Bud Light with a rifle. Boycott calls spread across social media, talk radio, and cable news. Then it got worse. Days earlier, Bud Light's own marketing vice president had said in an interview that she wanted to move the brand away from its, quote, pratty, out-of-touch humor. When that resurfaced, it told millions of loyal drinkers the brand was embarrassed by them. That was the detonator, and Anheuser-Busch froze. As the backlash grew, the company said almost nothing for nearly 2 weeks. When the CEO finally spoke, his statement carefully took no side at all. And in trying not to anger anyone, it angered everyone. Conservatives felt insulted. Progressives felt the brand had abandoned Dylan Mulvaney the second things got hard. Bud Light had managed to alienate both sides of a culture war it had wandered into by accident. And the numbers started to move, fast. And if losing a few weeks of sales sounds bad, wait until you see what it did to the rest of the year. By summer, this was no longer a blip. It was a collapse. In some weeks, Bud Light's U.S. sales were down nearly 30% versus the year before. 30% for the best-selling beer in the country. For Anheuser-Busch, it showed up in the financials. North American revenue fell by an estimated $1.4 billion across the year, and in a single quarter, U.S. revenue dropped more than 10%. But the most symbolic blow wasn't a dollar figure. In May 2023, just weeks after the post, Bud Light lost its #1 ranking. The beer that dethroned it? Modelo Especial, a Mexican import. A title Bud Light had held for over 20 years was simply gone. And it didn't come back. The damage spread into the real economy. Anheuser-Busch cut hundreds of jobs. Distributors were hammered. Retailers quietly cut Bud Light's shelf space. Meanwhile, its rivals feasted. Molson Coors had a record year, as Coors Light and Miller Lite swallowed the customers. Bud Light lost. And Dylan Mulvaney? Months later, she said the company never once reached out to support her through the harassment. Bud Light had abandoned her too. Anheuser-Busch tried everything to recover. Patriotic, all-American marketing, football sponsorships, veterans charities, rebates, feel-good Super Bowl ads. Some of it helped at the margins. None of it brought the crown back, because the people who left mostly didn't return. They found a new default beer, and defaults are sticky. That's the thing about a crater. You can fill it in, but the ground is never the same. So where does it stand today? More than a year later, Bud Light still hasn't taken back its throne. By mid-2024, it had slipped again to number 3, behind Modelo and Michelob Ultra. Anheuser-Busch's U.S. business stabilized, but at a permanently lower level, a smaller footprint than it had held for 20 years. Most boycotts fade in weeks. This one didn't, because the people who left found a new default, and identity is sticky. As for the parent company's stock, and quick note, nothing here is financial advice, this is just the record. Shares took a real hit in 2023 as the boycott played out, and recovered only partly as the company stabilized and kept growing everywhere else in the world. The global business is still enormous, but in the United States, the most valuable beer brand in the company's portfolio had been permanently downsized by one Instagram post, which raises the obvious question: how does one post cost billions? The answer is the lesson. It's next. Here's what actually killed Bud Light, and it wasn't politics. It was the freeze. Every brand will eventually step on a landmine. You can't always control that. What you can control is what you do in the next 48 hours. Bud Light's fatal mistake wasn't the Mulvaney post. Plenty of brands run partnerships some customers dislike and survive easily. The fatal mistake was having no conviction and no plan. They tried to please everyone, so they stood for nothing. And a brand that stands for nothing gives its customers no reason to defend it. The lesson every business should steal from this is brutally simple. Know exactly who your customer is. Decide what you stand for before the crisis. And when the moment comes, move fast and mean it. Silence isn't neutral. In a crisis, silence is a decision, usually the wrong one. Bud Light paid more than $1 billion to learn that lesson. You don't have to. Most brands never see the crack until it's already a crater. A confusing message, a customer base they don't really understand, a brand quietly drifting. If that might be yours, I'll take it apart for you before it costs you anything. A free, no-pitch brand teardown. Links in the description, and if you want to watch another empire fall, that one's already waiting for you, right here. This is Crater. See you at the next collapse.